Hello, and welcome to this recording of Building Your Personal Brand on LinkedIn event. Thank you for tuning in. Are you ready to level up your personal branding game and stand out in the industry? If so, then you're in the right place. In this video, we'll be sharing practical tips and strategies to help you craft your personal brand on LinkedIn. From your profile picture to your summary, we got you covered. And the best part is, you can download the full cheat sheet of this video in the description below. So be sure to check it out and take your LinkedIn branding to the next level. Thanks again, and we can't wait to see your standard personal brand on LinkedIn. Let's jump right in and enjoy the video.
Welcome everyone to Career Accelerator's LinkedIn Live event on building your personal brand. My name is Akash Bandhar, and I'll be performing double duty as a host and a panelist today. Before we dive into the nitty-gritty of personal branding, let me introduce my fantastic fellow co. First up, we have Gautam Palappa. Gautam is the founder of Transformity and an executive advisor at VMware. He has a PhD in computer science and an award-winning author who helps leaders lead with empathy and aims to transform humanity through empathy and technology. Next up, we have Subramanian Murli, aka Subram, aka Subbu. Subram is the Group Vice President for Marketing Technologies at Fidelity Investments and is a technology leader with experience leading large organizations and high-performing teams. Previously, he saw the development and migration of a new mail platform for over 1.2 billion users at Yahoo. Last, but certainly not the least, myself. I'm currently working on building the future of digital ownership in games as the Vice President of Studio Engineering at Immutable. Previously, I led the creation of the virtual economy platform at Electronic Arts, that among other things powered Apex Legends, the fastest growing battle royale game, which grew from 0 to 50 million players in 4 weeks. I'm also an angel investor, startup advisor, career coach, and a content creator. My passions include solving complex problems with a team, driving business outcomes, and value creation for all. I'm really excited to be hosting this event and sharing our knowledge with you all. Our other panelists also have a wealth of knowledge to share with you today, so let's give them a warm welcome and get started. So before we jump in, you should both introduce yourself in your own words. Gautam, why don't you go first?
Sure. Thanks, Akash. Welcome everyone to this wonderful discussion. I'm really excited to be on the panel today. I'm an executive advisor at VMware where I work with C-suite and executives on their business and organizational transformation goals. I have over 20 years of academic and industry experience in various verticals. And in those roles, I have led large engineering and operation teams and have been accountable for several mission-critical applications such as Enhanced 911 for all of North America, suicide hotlines, conference and collaboration for analyst calls and large events, and school notifications for K through 12. I'm an engineer by heart and joined management to bring a voice for the developers and engineers. And so my motto is transform with empathy. And as you can imagine, I'm passionate about empathic leadership. I love lean experimentation, agility, and DevOps, and helping organizations evolve with these 4 skills. I'm based out of the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm looking forward to this discussion that we'll have today and all the insights that will be shared.
Awesome. Thank you, Gautam. Over to you, Subram.
Hey, thank you, Akash, and good to meet everyone today and for this discussion. Also equally excited to be part of this. Akash shared a good introduction to myself, speaking a little bit more. I have been in the industry for over 20 years also. For the last few years into management, have been focusing on marketing technology. Speaking of branding, I had the privilege of working for one of the biggest brands, Nike, where I got to learn a ton about how the marketing side of things work. Right now, I am the technology leader and the marketing technology leader for the marketing technology platform for Fidelity. Previously, like Akash mentioned, I was in Yahoo, did several roles, including engineering roles as well as slight product-oriented roles as well. As a leader, I am someone who is known for bringing a ton of passion and energy into any team. I'm also someone who focuses extremely on engineering culture and people culture and all of that to drive results. So it's exciting to be part of this conversation, and I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks for your intro, Subbu. So let's jump right in. So building your personal brand on LinkedIn can seem like a daunting task, but don't worry, we're here to make it easy and maybe a little bit fun too. So today we'll give you a rundown of all of the important stuff, but we'll make sure to include some actionable tips also so you can start building and boosting your brand as soon as possible. So the first thing I did was I did a deep dive on the aspirations and goals that people have when it comes to building their personal brand and upping their LinkedIn game. And here's what I uncovered. So people seek increased visibility. They want to up their career game by increasing the visibility to potential employers, clients, and industry contacts with a killer LinkedIn presence. They want to stand out from the competition and improve their job prospects with a top-notch online profile on LinkedIn. They want to connect with like-minded professionals and expand their professional network by building their online presence on LinkedIn. They want to establish themselves as thought leaders in their field by crafting a really awesome LinkedIn profile and staying active on the platform. And they also want to take their career to new heights and achieve personal and professional growth by learning new skills, connecting with others, and showcasing their achievements on LinkedIn. Well, the flip side of this is I also uncovered some frustrations that people have, which some of you may also be experiencing, and these are definitely some that I had experienced myself. So there's a feeling of overwhelm. Building a bigger online presence on LinkedIn can be very intimidating, especially if you don't know where to start. So we're here to help you with that. Time constraints, like there's always more work than the time that we have. So how do we find the time to go build an online LinkedIn presence? Standing out from the crowd, like with millions of profiles on LinkedIn, it can be really hard to make your profile stand out. So how do you make your profile stand out is another important thing that we're going to talk about. Connecting with others. How do you go about building this network and connecting with other people in meaningful ways, right? If you're not doing it in meaningful ways, it can be really, really frustrating. And not seeing the results that you want. It can be really disheartening to put in the time and effort to build your online presence on LinkedIn and not seeing the results. It takes time. Like any good thing in life, it takes time. You have to build your foundations and then you have to go and slowly work towards it. So it takes a lot of time and effort. So if you want to build a stellar presence, you have to make it a priority. So there are no shortcuts and there's no magic solution here. But the good news is you've already taken the first step towards building your online presence by showing up over here, and our expert panel is here to alleviate some of your frustrations and help you realize your aspirations. So without further ado, first thing, so I'm going to throw this one at you, Gautam. So how does one even go about determining the personal brand and target audience? How do you approach building your personal brand on LinkedIn?
Yeah. So I want to start off by underscoring what Akash actually mentioned and say that it does take time. It's like germination, it's like growing a tree. You need time and love and care in order to build and grow your personal brand. Through years of experimentation and failures, I've found that there are 3 steps to help one determine their personal brand and target audience. The first step is to take some time to understand what motivates and drives you. That's the most important thing. You want to take some time to introspect and identify your why or your purpose. This is the reason you get up in the morning energized. So thinking of following your why is supposed to fill you with happiness and content and fulfillment. So really take some time out to identify your why and to introspect upon it. So for example, I'm deeply passionate about improving human quality of life through empathy and technology. This was my calling from years and years, even in my master's, where I worked with hospitals and medical device manufacturers to help predict mild seizures in epileptic patients and reduce the intensity of the seizures through vagus nerve stimulation. This passion carried on to my PhD, where I focused on developing smart algorithms and systems to help improve the quality of life of patients suffering from Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. So as you can see, my personal motto, transform with empathy, is reflected in everything that I do. And even when I founded Transformity, it was all about transforming humanity with empathy and technology. So identifying one's purpose or passion is the first step. The second step is to perform a SWOT analysis on yourself. SWOT stands for strengths, weapons, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And it's used extensively in product management and marketing, right? Performing a SWOT analysis on yourself emphasizes the fact that you are the product when you're promoting your personal brand. And the way you go about doing this is to identify 5 of your strengths, 5 of your weaknesses, 5 of your opportunities, and 5 of your threats. And I promise you, this can be pretty revealing when you start going down that path, especially if this is the first time that you're performing this exercise. And on a side note, once you've finished your SWOT analysis of yourself, you might want to assess your long-term goals and see how your SWOT helps or hinders you. And there'll be some interesting insights that you can gain out of it. And the third step is then to create the right strategies to promote your brand and identify the target audience or your product market fit. Your why and your SWOT analysis will help you tailor these strategies to your specific brand. For example, if one of your strengths is collaborating with people, but you've identified writing as a weakness, then maybe starting a blog out of the gate may not be a good first step to create your personal brand. It will not be authentic. It won't be a reflection of yourself. And you may not give it your complete dedication to building your brand that way. Instead, being on a panel or recording a conversation with other like-minded people on topics related to your passion, it will increase that energy in the conversation and make a better impact. It will also help you find your niche and not cater to every demographic. So for example, oatmeal has its purpose. It's a really good breakfast, but it's oatmeal. The effects of spicy food actually last longer and has a memorable impact on your mind. So don't cater to every demographic. So I feel these are 3 simple steps that you can start off. The first one is find your why, your passion. The second one is perform a SWOT analysis on yourself. Consider yourself a product and market yourself that way. And then afterwards, create the right strategies to promote your brand with like-minded audiences using step 1 and 2.
Yeah, thank you so much for that insight, Gautam. I think that clarity is very, very important, right? And it is something that a lot of people don't have. So we go through life without exactly figuring out what we are trying to do. We just go with the motions, which leads to a lot of confusion, fuzzy-mindedness and stuff. So if you can introspect and figure out your core values and be consistent with them, that goes a long way in building your brand. Like just like Gautam was talking, my brand basically revolves around 3 things. It's like solving complex problems, driving business outcomes, and value creation for all. And as part of value creation, I do content creation. I like teaching people. I like helping people. Like that's basically my calling. And anything and everything I do has to be consistent with that. And that gives me a lot of joy and satisfaction. Subbu, what is your take on this? What do you want to add?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for sharing the points there. A couple of things. You said something, Akash, which is value system. And to add to the exercise that Gautam was mentioning, I like to do an exercise specifically aimed at the value system, which is borrowed from Brené Brown's Dare to Lead book, for example, where the exercise itself is fairly simple. You know, there are about 100 different adjectives that are listed out. The goal of the exercise is to spend 15 minutes, narrow that list to 10 that describes you, spend additional 30 minutes to narrow that list down to 5, and spend additional 30 minutes to narrow that list down to 3. Sounds very simple, but it's incredibly hard to be honest with yourself to try to gauge what exactly is your value system. The reason this is important in my experience is when you know your value system, a lot of the decisioning around how you come across, what your brand is, what you're saying, what people are saying about you, all revolves around those value systems. For me, the value system that I keep coming back to, for me, the 3 are creativity, authenticity, and comfort. Those are the three things that keep coming back for me from a value system. So everything that is around me being a transparent leader or being transparent in my communication and direct in my communication comes from that need to be authentic. Me being in the field of engineering and solving complex problems comes from my value system for trying to be creative, both in my professional life and my personal life. In my personal life, for example, I love spending time with my son building Lego. So a lot of that translates from your core values. So to add to that exercise that Gautam mentioned, I would encourage the listeners to try building their values and identify what their values are. That can help shape the narrative about their brand. The next thing I would love to say about the brand is, usually when we think of brands, we always think about companies and big conglomerates, right? So if you ask yourself a question, when you think about coffee, what brand comes to your mind? There are companies that come to you. When you think about sporting shoes, what comes to your mind? When you think about French fries, what comes to your mind? So each of these are brands that come to your mind for a specific reason, because they have put out a message. So one thing I took away from that is, when you are establishing a personal brand, silence is not an option. There has to be effort on your part, as well as on the receiving side, where you can constantly course correct what people are hearing to make sure that your brand first meets people before you do. And that's how branding is. So those are a couple of things I'd like to add to this.
Yeah, that's very key. And there are a couple of other points that I just wanted to hit upon. Like, one is consistency.
Yeah.
As Subbu was saying, like you see the same ads over and over again on TV because it just takes up mind space in your head. So when there's a job opportunity, when there's someone in the network that you want to reach out to, you putting yourself out there consistently with a consistent message makes you present in people's headspace, even when you are not present.
Yeah.
So that is very important. You understand your values, you understand your core beliefs, and operate within those constraints. Another thing that I think we had talked about yesterday, when we were doing a prep call for this, is you need to be consistent across all mediums.
Yeah.
You can't just be consistent on LinkedIn and have very conflicting messages coming on Facebook or very different messaging coming on Twitter. Like, that confuses people. People don't know who you really are at that point. So across all mediums, be consistent, be professional. It's very important.
Yeah, I think the authenticity that was discussed earlier is the key, because if you want to establish a brand just because someone else is doing it, it is never authentic, and it shows, because there is only so long that you can keep up with the appearances, because somewhere it needs to be natural to who you are and what you want to put out there. So identifying and making sure that your reasoning and the why, like Gautam mentioned, is important, because if you don't have that clearly nailed down, you start becoming more of, oh, that person's doing something, so I also want to do that, and it starts almost counterworking against what you were set out to do. So that's another key.
I love those points that you both are making, because what I've seen across different media is the confusion of the personal brand. Like, for example, as people have organically grown in their life and on social media, their Facebook profiles, their Instagram profiles, and their LinkedIn profiles could be very different, because in the before times, Facebook was meant to be just very personal. It was supposed to be small cliques and groups, and then afterwards it exploded into various different things. And LinkedIn was purely for professional profiling, right? And Instagram was there just as a cool thing, as an add-on, something interesting that you wanted to do and show to the world, like what are your skills and all these various things. Now, the entire world has become digital first, and everyone is relying so much on social media. And so, what I would like all of you to do is take a look at even the last 30 to 60 days of all your posts on these various things and see if you can draw a similar thread. What I found is some of them are very confusing. Some of them have alternating thoughts. And at which point it makes someone who is trying to follow you as a personal brand, question what your why is, what are your things that you're driving towards, as Subbu mentioned, and that Akash mentioned as well. So make sure that you have a concerted effort to be consistent across all those platforms, and realize that even if in the past things have been different, it doesn't mean it's a lost cause. You can always work on it. You can recreate yourself. You can rebrand yourself. Companies do this all the time. They change what they mean. They send out press statements about what they want to do in the future. Be a part of that and be consistent. And I know it takes time to build trust and reputation, but as long as you're consistent, you will start seeing effort, changes, and you'll see traction in your personal brand as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these are all great points. Another thing which generally comes up is authenticity and humbleness is one of the topics I wanted to touch upon. All three of us are from India, and in the Southeast Asian context, generally, you're taught to be humble and not brag. So, which for a long time actually kept us back from putting ourselves out there. And what we felt as putting ourselves out there was bragging. And then the realization that really struck us was it's not bragging, it's just positioning our authentic selves out there so people can get to know us. So when you put yourself out there, it's definitely not bragging. Building your personal brand is not about selling something that you're not. It is about showing the world who you are, which is where the authenticity point really comes home. Just don't oversell. Because if you try to oversell yourself, you will be found. So don't oversell, be authentic, be humble, be who you are, and put your best foot out there.
Yeah. Part of that, I would
Yes.
also suggest, and this is quite revealing sometimes, where I would encourage all the listeners to try Googling themselves to see what shows up. Because oftentimes, at least as a hiring manager, one thing you end up doing is look up on LinkedIn first and then do a general search to see what maybe their GitHub profile show up or their other interests show up. You can control that narrative as well. People oftentimes don't realize how much you can control that, because if I were to do a search for me, what shows up is obviously some of the talks that I do, as well as a photographer. It shows up what I do as a photographer, what I do as something else. So each of that is something that you can give a little bit more about yourself and your interests, so that you can use that to shape the narrative about your brand.
That's great. I'd like to add one more thing here, and this is something that I realized early on because I struggled with talking about myself as well. I mean, I'm a South Asian, and it is really difficult for us to talk about ourselves because of the way we were brought up, and which is common to a lot of people in the world. I mean, we are reserved, and we are told that we need to have humility and not talk about ourselves and not be pride and not demonstrate hubris, because it will be considered arrogance. But what I started realizing was that there is a difference, there is a profound difference between selling yourself and marketing yourself. So, selling yourself is giving people what you think they want. But marketing yourself is talking about you as the product and telling others what you are. So once you define that and once you understand that there is a very different thing, your comfort level in talking about you as a product and as a personal brand is going to be much more easier, because you're not selling or catering to a larger audience, but you are demonstrating and marketing to the world what you as a product stand for and what others can expect out of you. So that's something that I would share with all the listeners.
Yeah, thank you on that, Gautam. The last thing which was stopping me from putting myself out there was essentially the imposter syndrome. I always felt I might not have something good to share. Like, why would people want to listen to what I have to share or put out there in the world? And what I realized was, so for someone who's going new to college, like a first year college student, a second year college student can relate with them a lot more than their professor who's like a PhD and went to school like 20 years ago. So I don't need to be the best in the world about anything. I just need to be one step ahead of the people, and I can help the people who are just one step behind me. So think about what you would have wanted to know a year ago, 2 years ago, and share that with the audience. You're not trying to share it with the experts in the world. Because you have been through the journey recently, share it with the people who were in that area like a year ago. So that's what your goal should be. The second thing which helped me over there was oftentimes we feel like the only people who have something good to say are the ones who are the best in the world. There can only be like one person who's best in the world about anything. But what makes us unique is our talent stack. All of us have different sets of talents and we have different levels of knowledge about them. As Subbu was saying, he's into engineering, he's into leadership, he's into photography, he's into marketing. Like that's what makes him unique. The combination of this talent becomes more and more rare. He's probably not the best marketer. He's definitely a great leader, but he might not be the best leader in the world. But the combination of all of those different talents and all of those different skills that you have is what makes you you. And that is a very diverse perspective. And the world needs to hear that. So don't shy away from putting yourself out there, marketing yourself, but it all starts with identifying who you are. And if you need help, ask your colleagues, ask your family, ask your friends about what are some of the things that define you. Because you might not just be able to figure that out on your own. Ask people and look at that, introspect about it, and go through the exercises that Gautam and Subbu shared to identify what your personal brand is, and everything else that we're going to discuss in this talk stems from that. Like once you identify who yourself are and how you want to put yourself out there, everything else is going to be a lot more easier.
Yeah. I will double down on one thing you said there, Akash, which is perspectives, right? You rightly mentioned that everyone has unique skills, but what also is key, and I think is part of I loved what Gautam said around marketing yourself. Part of the marketing yourself piece comes is that only you have certain perspectives that is very, very unique in this whole ecosystem, in the professional career, right? Because your life experiences, your own experiences dealing with your own career growth is unique to you. And oftentimes putting that out there can be relatable. And when you're especially in the IT world where everyone can sound like they are commodity, a Java engineer is a Java engineer. But what differentiates people is what those experiences are, what those perspectives are, what kind of problems they have solved, what they are passionate about, what they can willing to talk about, what they are not willing to talk about. Each of that starts becoming the brand itself. And much like how Gautam said in marketing yourself, those become the key things as you grow in your career that become more and more important than the individual single piece skills that anyone would to bring. So those perspectives are the unique thing, in fact, that people will need to focus on.
If we can pull that thread a little bit more, because I love it. We're talking about imposter syndrome. We're talking about presenting yourself and the unique combination of experiences and skills and talent that each individual on earth brings to the table. What I would make you all think of is every single event, whether you were successful at it or whether you failed at it, actually is an experience point for you. You have learned something from it. It has given you knowledge. It has shaped and evolved you in some small, minute way. And as you accrue all of these things, and as you reflect upon all the things that people would consider a failure, or you perceive that people would consider a failure, and I don't call it failure, I actually just call it unintended consequences or unintended outcomes. Every one of those has actually made you much more stronger, and it has given you more knowledge. So if you think you have failed at something, you have actually gotten validated learning from it better than anyone else on earth, because you are the only person who has gone through that experience. So don't sell yourself short. Try to understand that the universe and everything, every event that is going through in your life is actually shaping you and your personal brand as you align it towards success.
Great insights, everyone. We should start moving on to the next sections. But before we do that, just a reminder for people: there's a Slido link in the event description that you can use to send us questions. We have a Q&A section at the end, so we'll love to see your questions over there. There's also a Google form for feedback on the session. Please go ahead and spend some time giving feedback to us so we can learn and we can improve on this also. Also, feel free to follow us on LinkedIn. And there's also a group that I've created because all of you are here for a single purpose of learning how to create your brand. So it would be great if you can all support each other by joining the group and giving each other feedback and helping each other along the journey on building a better LinkedIn brand and better networking with people on LinkedIn. Awesome. So with that, let's jump into the next section. So this one, I'll start with Subbu, you this time. What is an AllStar profile and how does one go about setting one up on LinkedIn?
Sure. I think specifics to the AllStar, one, we need to make sure that we have our professional details all hammered out in the way that you want it, right? Making sure each of the descriptors are done, each of the pieces are explained properly, and all of it. Second, the picture is always your first impression. This is what I found out through our own discussion prior to this talk, that you need to make sure that it's a clear image of you in a recent setting and all of it. The next one I would focus on is to establish clearly what your industry is and where your location is and all of that, right? Where are you willing to operate out of? Which market are you working in and everything. The next is, when it comes to the headline, what do you want a quick snapshot of you to be taken away the moment someone stumbles on your profile? Like, how do you get that going? How do you identify that? How do you make that something which is articulate enough that explains about you, at the same time gives a perspective of what you bring to a professional setting? I talked a little bit about skills, and make sure you have a clear articulation and summary of what you bring to the table, so that when someone wants to dive a little deeper, they have a clearer understanding about your current job, what your interests are, who are you as a leader, what your prior accomplishments are, and all of it. And finally, I would say pay attention to the connections you make, who you follow, who you not follow. Are you posting? Are you creating any content lines around those lines and all of it? So some of these are elements to creating that AllStar profile. Maybe Akash and Gautam can add a little bit more.
Yeah, Gautam, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I mean, Subbu did a great job identifying a lot of the things that you want to have in your profile. I think what I would add to it is there are a couple of things that LinkedIn provides that will actually make you much more visible, and it also shows perspective of you. It presents you and promotes you, and that is the featured section. Try to have at least 2 or 3 things, be it social media, be it some post about you, a picture, an article that you wrote, some post that you provided insight upon that really aligns with you, or even it could be one of a small presentation about yourself. You have a number of techniques that can do it, like Pecha Kucha is one where you have really quick 10 slides that talk about yourself. You can upload that and put it in your featured column. So when someone goes and visits you, they can actually see about you without you being there to present and market yourself. So use the featured section. That is really, really powerful, and that helps people identify and understand what you are as a human being. The other thing is have a couple of projects put in. Like, it could be some side projects, it could be some volunteering activities, something that is not just at work. All of you do a number of wonderful things in your day-to-day life. There is nothing wrong in actually putting it there and showing people that you are well-rounded and you have a 360-degree presentation on LinkedIn. So if you're volunteering at a particular event, you're doing something for a nonprofit organization, or you're coaching or mentoring, put that there as in your volunteer things, in addition to your licenses and certifications and all that. It doesn't always have to be just about the job. LinkedIn is about you and your social presence. And so you want to use the tools that LinkedIn provides to increase your AllStar profile on and get it promoted more.
Yeah, great information from you both. Just to add on to that, uh, LinkedIn considers what is an all-star profile to be one which is at least 50% complete. Okay, so please go in and make sure your profile is as complete as possible. We already talked about a professional profile photo and a headline which summarizes you. Because if you look at the card, when anyone sees you engaging with a certain piece of content or posting a content, the very first thing that they see are your profile photo, your name, and your headline. So you can have your headline be a call to action and what you do or what you're accountable for. So make it something which is catchy, which draws attention, makes it very clear what you do and what you want others to do when they look at that. So you can look at my headline, for example, and see what I expect people to do. That is very important. The other thing is you want to have 2 or more past job titles listed for you to be classified as an all-star profile by LinkedIn. If you've only had one job but have like different levels and you got promoted and different responsibilities, feel free to go list them as different job titles. It'll help you work your way towards an all-star profile. And the last 2 things you need over there are you need at least 3 skills to be listed on your profile. So go ahead and definitely add those skills. Don't ignore them. And these need to be vetted by other people who have that skill. So seek for recommendations and people who can go say that, yeah, this person has this skill. And higher weight is given to if they also have that skill, right? So network with people, figure out that you can go ahead and get vouched to have those skills. And you want to have a minimum of 50 connections. So if you have all of this, you generally have an all-star profile. How does one go about making a really good profile picture is another question which comes up quite a lot. It needs to be professional. You could use the site called pfpmaker.com to go create your profile. It's again pfpmaker.com. Just upload a picture. It can remove the background. It can give different color background options and things. It's pretty good. It does a pretty good job. You could use Canva. I use Canva. I use some of the things to go make my background blur. I made my foreground pop. So that's another option to you. LinkedIn natively also has a profile picture editing. We can add vignette, increase the brightness. You can add other filters on top of it. Again, it's not Instagram. You want to still look like yourself. You want to be your authentic self. But having your profile picture pop is not a bad thing, right? So go spend some time doing that. Sometimes people struggle coming up with the right phrasing or summary for themselves. There's also a summary section, which people generally look when they go to your profile. There's generally a summary of what you have done. Don't just list out things in a very simple manner. Go ahead and put some structure over there, get some right phrasing over there. I spent a lot of time coming up with my summary like a year ago, and I keep updating it as needed. But now you have ChatGPT. Go to chat.openai.com, put in the things, ask it to generate a LinkedIn summary in the tone that you want, and then review it to make sure it's your authentic self. So you want that to go ahead and represent who you are and what you do in a good manner. So definitely go ahead and do that. And seek recommendations and referrals from other people. And you do that and you will be way on your way to having an all-star profile on LinkedIn.
And one thing I will say about recommendations is be intentional about seeking out folks who you want to recommend you, about specific things that you want recommendation on. So oftentimes when I at least I have fallen trapped to this before, where you give and receive recommendation purely because of that act, versus explicitly stating and being intentional and saying, I'm looking for a job change, I'm looking for a career promotion, I'm looking for something, and then say, I want you to highlight my success in the following project, or your experience working with me on. Those are specific questions that you can ask the recommender so that you can cater the recommendation to a little bit more. Oftentimes overlooked is you can even reorder and hide and unhide recommendations based on where you are in your career. That's another option that at least I have started using in the last 4 or 5 years. Is just another tip I wanted to add specifically on recommendations.
In that vein, and Subbu, thanks for bringing that up, because you can be very intentional about the recommendations, right? Reflect it the same way in your experience. So, for example, if you're asking the recommender to talk about something very specific and they give you the recommendation, make sure that you actually highlight that in your experience section on some of the accomplishments that you have achieved in that particular role. And it's not just so words matter, and you want to pick and choose much more actionable words rather than passive words, and show that you had ownership and you were accountable for driving and doing those various things. So rather than saying I was part of a team that executed a particular project, you would say something like I led or I drove the effort to do this, and then talk about what outcome came out of that particular event or that recommendation that you're getting, and say, how did that actually benefit the company? How did that improve? Talk about numbers. Be very, you use the SMART goals approach. So you want to be specific, measurable, actionable, relatable, and time bound, right? So you want it to be very specific, and you want it to show and demonstrate the action and how you actively did it, rather than you being part of a team, which means people don't actually know whether you were the one doing it or whether the team did it and you were part of that team. So make sure you're very conscious. And as Akash mentioned, it takes some time. It does take time for you to tweak all this and make it better. But if you don't invest in yourself, you cannot expect an organization to invest in you. So take some time to do all these things.
Very true, very true. And also on writing your outcomes in a very specific manner, you need to realize that when recruiters are looking for you, they might not be experts in your area. So if you go very technical, very deep in your area, they might not be able to understand it. But if you put it as what business outcomes were achieved and what your role was, it makes it very easy for them to look you up, right? And you become more desirable, as opposed to somebody who's gone into extreme levels of detail or has just basically mentioned I was part of the team which did X, Y, or Z. So specificity over here, but at the right level of abstraction is very important. Awesome. So just a reminder again, there is a Slido link. People can go ahead and send in the questions. We don't have any questions right now, so that would be appreciated.
I did see someone raise their hand. I was wondering if that person could just go to Slido and do it, because it did feel like there was a question that was coming in.
Okay. Yeah, that would be fantastic if you can go to Slido. Awesome. So next topic over here. What are some of the best practices for sharing and engaging with content? Let's go with you, Gautam, this time.
Okay, so first one is probably consistency, right? You want to be on point and you want to be aligned, and it should resonate with what your why is. That is the most important thing. Everything that you're sharing and everything that you're demonstrating or signaling to the world needs to be a reflection about you. The other thing that I've seen some people do is if there is a really powerful post by a world-leading person, Subbu mentioned Brené Brown, amazing individual. She is wonderful, and she does a lot of great work on empathy and so on. And Simon Sinek is another person, Adam Grant, and so on. So there are people who are really powerful in the world, and they send very powerful messages. You liking it means that it does come on your feed, that you're sharing it, but it doesn't really mean you added something to it. Take some time to digest what that post was, or what that article was, or what that podcast or anything was. Make a gist of it and post it in your thoughts, because you are then contributing and adding value to that particular article. Don't just like it. You want to say something about it, like what you got out of it, and it can just be one sentence or two sentences. So that's good, and that will help start building your personal brand, and also will help people understand how you evaluate things and how you are digesting and absorbing the content that is provided. The other thing that I will say, and there are so many out here, I'm afraid we'll run out of time, but I'd let you and Subbu actually talk more about it, Akash. But the only other thing that I would say is make sure that you use hashtags properly. Don't use hashtags like how all these influencers and other people on Instagram do, where it's like a huge stream of just hashtags because you want it to spread to multiple places. LinkedIn, it doesn't work that way. You don't want it to be that way, actually. You just want to use very, very specific hashtags. And what I like to do is actually have my own hashtag that builds my personal brand. So, for example, I have hashtag leading with empathy and hashtag transformity, which reflect who I am and what I do. So whenever I'm posting something and it has leading with empathy in it, as I'm writing it, I use hashtag leading with empathy, and that increases my personal brand. So those are two best practices that I can share, and I'll actually open it up to you both, because you have some amazing insights.
Yeah, I'll just add on these both, right? Like on the hashtags front, I do the same thing. But generally, LinkedIn does not like too many hashtags. The sweet spot is maybe 3, so try to be between 1 and 3. Most of the times I have 0. But as Gautam was saying, you can have your own personal brand related hashtags. I also have a podcast called The Fairy Tale Show. So when Gautam was talking about failures and learning from them, I was kind of smiling. So I use the hashtag fairy tale. Where people come in and share their tales of fail. So that's what I use. Then also about influencers, you have to realize 2 things, right? Like influencers are people too. They like it when people interact with their content. The like tells them, yeah, people are kind of liking it, but comments actually tell them more. And if you're one of the first people to comment on it or respond in meaningful ways, that is great, right? Like they love to interact with people back. I have reached out to influencers and I was just asking questions. I'm like, hey, what's your favorite book? And they'll respond back to you and they'll tell you. So this is a high upside and low downside to this. So feel free to comment on things, feel free to reach out, but make sure these are meaningful comments that add to the conversation. So those are great. We have a hand up, and I think someone's trying to talk, so I'll just allow them to talk once again. Hey, Pushkraj.
Hi, should I wait for Akash's comment to finish, then I'll speak?
No, go for it. Go for it.
Okay. So, sorry, I came in pretty late, but I want to share something very quickly. Gautam sir, Akash, Subramanian sir, as you were talking about failure, maybe 3 months ago, I was getting rammed in all interviews. I used to reach the final round, but due to my career gap, my age and my overqualified credentials, I got rejected left, right and center. Now, I started being active on LinkedIn. So here's the thing what I did, okay? I formed my own company, okay? My website is going to be, I'm a employee mindset kind of a guy. I've never entered the entrepreneurship or a founder's take ship, So right now, when I started being active on LinkedIn and, this has led me to create one of my bedrooms into my studio and my small office. I'm super scared, not in a negative way, but those nervous goosebumps you have. I am forming my own website and I'm getting into the shoes of what I'm going to start as director's journey or a founder's journey. So my question is, sir, yes, I have, if you see my videos and everything, I look confident, but that confidence comes out of 15 retakes, 16 retakes. So what is an advice to you for a person who's entered into a 40 and who's starting his journey, whether it's LinkedIn or a new prospect? So I'm nervous, I'm admitting it, and there's nothing wrong. So any takes on that? What few things I should concentrate on?
Can I take that one, Akash, because I'm the oldest of the three of you.
There you go. You got it.
Okay, so I love the fact that you have taken a step forward and you're putting yourself out there and you are trying to do everything possible to build your reputation, build your personal brand and all that. What I have found is that age doesn't matter. The sheer fact that you as an individual, out of all the 8 billion people that we have on earth, has taken a step forward to actually put some original content out into the world means that you are better than a lot of other people. And rather than succumb to what people consider as failures, you have harnessed the energy of that and you have converted it into a powerful mechanism, and you are using it to channel your energy is great. And I would actually say this is something amazing that everyone can think of, because it takes time to build trust and reputation. You need to constantly give it your all. You're going to fail a lot. I actually almost fail every day on a daily basis, and I'm actually happy with it. Because I get to learn so much and I can tweak it and I can get better and I can refine it. But the fact that you are putting something up, that it is something really different, because in this world, especially in this social media age, it's so easy to put some content out there. Everyone has the right to speak, but you need to earn the right to be heard. And so that is something that I would share with all of you regarding sharing and engaging content.
Yeah, I would second that. Thank you so much for putting yourself out there. You have taken the first step to be successful just by doing that, right? There's so many people who think about it, but they never end up acting on it. And about the 15-16 take, my suggestion to you is two-step. Like, one, don't let perfection become the enemy of done. It's okay to put something out there, even if it has errors in it. And that's fine. It's okay. Your audience will be very forgiving. The second thing is, perfection is boring, okay? Imperfection is what attracts people's attention and makes them want to talk about it. How many times you see people talking about bloopers and fails and things and stuff? Don't do it on purpose, but it's okay. Like, it can be a good talking point. So don't worry about it. Speed is what is important. The content that you have and the quality of content is more important than anything else. Like the perfectionism in presenting it or talking about it and all of that. That you will work over time. You will learn about it. You're not going to get it perfect right now. I guarantee you, 4 years from now, you go back and look at your videos, which you thought were perfect, you'll be like, oh my God, what was I doing? What is important is that iterative learning. The more you learn, the better you're going to get.
And
so
it makes you
keep
human.
doing it.
It makes you human, right? I mean, everyone makes mistakes and it brings that human aspect of you, but that shouldn't deter you from doing it. But again, when you are putting the content out there, make sure that you are consistent and you're on point and you're being genuine. Because at the end of the day, everything that you're putting is to build your personal brand, and it has to align with it and resonate with similar like-minded people.
Yeah, and feel free to reach out and connect with us. We'll be happy to connect with you and follow your channel and give you feedback if you need any. We're more than happy to do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. If you see videos, I'm like, I must be looking like so confident, but behind the scenes, I know how nervous I am. And trust me, I couldn't have asked for better 2023 results. Just being on your audio show, it means a lot. I'm going to connect with all of you. Cheers.
Thanks, Pushraj. All right, so we have another person who wants to speak. I'll just be making them the speaker. Hello, Talha.
I think
Talha, you have the stage. right. So looks like Tala is having a hard time.
Akash, I do want to say something because we were talking about influencers, right? One of the things that in your AllStar profile that you can do is add interests, like the people that you're following and the companies that you're following, the groups that you're following, and so on. That also signals who you're interested in to recruiters and to other people who are trying to understand you as a person. Make sure that the people that you're following are in line with what you believe in. Like, just because they're popular doesn't mean that you should be following those people. Be very purposeful about identifying the top voices in your interests and the companies in your interests, because that will be a reflection of your personal brand.
Awesome. So let's talk about this question, which is like, how do I make time for all of this? Everybody has a very busy life. Nobody is just sitting around being like, hey, how do I go do things on LinkedIn? So Subbu, do you have any tips for us as to how people can make time for being active on LinkedIn?
Well, it is always a tough one. And for me, at least having a intentional outcome is first important. I think spending time for the sake of spending time would not be very productive. So if on LinkedIn, for example, for the last few months at least, I have been interested in curating and participating and creating more of a content-based awareness. And I had an opportunity to talk to Akash and doing this now, which means I am specifically trying to create time to drive that outcome forward. Now, one of the challenges with the classic social media is people spend time without actually knowing how much time they're spending. Like if I get sucked into a LinkedIn or a Instagram, I keep scrolling and I forget time. LinkedIn, on the other hand, I would say if you're in a job hunt, you would need to specifically carve out. I would say at least 2 to 3 hours a week to make sure that you are curating some of this stuff. How you carve that out? Usually, for me, what has worked is I try to do it during the first thing in the weekend, as soon as my weekend starts, or I'd like to do it during the evenings of a weekday. Those are usually my most productive times when it comes to non-professional or non-work related time slots. But again, I would encourage all of you to look at it as what outcome you're driving versus trying to figure out time for the sake of spending time. That's what I would kind of leave it at. Other than that, other time management tips that anyone were to give, be intentional about what you want to accomplish, carve out a very specific time yourself. All of those are important things regardless of what activity you do, and same applies for LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So similar to figuring out like what your brand is, what you stand for, you need to be very clear as to what you're trying to accomplish, and the amount of time you spend will depend based on that. So if you're just trying to connect with other people, engage with their content, and grow your network and build your visibility, like 10 to 15 minutes per day is more than enough. Don't fall trapped to just infinitely scrolling through the feed. It's not super helpful. Be very deliberate about engaging on LinkedIn.
Deliberate.
If you're trying to make content and share content on LinkedIn, so what is going to be important is you go ahead and pre-create your content. Like for example, my podcast, I went ahead and recorded 12 episodes before I went and published any episode. For some of the other articles that I'm writing, I'm usually a week or two ahead, because you don't really have the time to go do this every day. So just go in and create the content in advance and then slowly release it, because remember, consistency is the key. You don't want to post one article and then go away for a month or 2 months and not post anything. So if you want to be consistent, you have to figure out ways to carve out some time. And it shouldn't be a lot, like 10 to 15 minutes, I think is more than enough to go build your network and then stay active on the platform. Gautam, do you have any tips for us?
One thing that I can say is when it comes to creativity and creating new content, take some time to reflect and think upon it. I mean, Akash, you already said to be very purposeful and deliberate, and a lot of people actually do this. I mean, this is how Netflix does this as well. all the seasons are actually pre-recorded up front, or each season episodes are pre-recorded up front, and then afterwards they release it at one go. You don't want to release it at one go, but you want to have it so that it can be released when necessary. What I would say is, and here's a tip that might help you all. When you are doing a completely different activity, like for example, you're cooking or you're at the gym or you're taking a walk, think about original content and things that you could add and bring that would resonate with people. And as you are doing these other activities, it will help you refine your thoughts before you actually put it onto some form of digital media or you post it. So utilize that time. If you feel that you're really busy and you can't do anything, just cycle still 10 to 15 minutes of the time when you're doing some other activity to utilize for creating content. That's one of the other additional tips that I could give.
Yeah, I mean, that brings me to this point, right? I shared last week that leaders are readers. So if you don't consume content, if you don't put things in your brain, they're not suddenly going to come out of your brain. It's like trying to cook a gourmet meal with just ketchup and mustard in the kitchen. You need more ingredients, and unless you go buy those ingredients or like consume content, which is expanding your horizons, helping you level up, it's going to be really hard for you to come up with those original perspectives to share back with the community. So figure out a way to constantly learn and grow. So we are at time. I want to say, let's not finish the conversation here. Please go ahead and join the LinkedIn group that we have created in the event description. You can post your questions over there. There are a few questions that I see over here that I'll go ahead and post over there and start answering them over there. And yeah, we have our newsletter. You can go follow us and connect with us, and we'll be happy to help you all in any which way possible. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much, Subbu, and thank you so much, Gautam. It was great having this conversation with you all.
Thank you, Akash.
Thank you. This has been a great conversation, and feel free to connect with all of us and be active in the chat and ask us questions, and we will be glad to help in any way possible.
Yeah, and
also please fill out the survey. Thank you so much. It'll tell us how we did and how we can improve this for future.
Wish everyone
Have
the
a great day,
best.
everyone.
Bye.